Okay, so now I want to tell you a little bit about the bank war that occurred during Andrew Jackson's presidency. The reason for highlighting this situation is it gives you a sense of how Jackson used his power differently or in different ways than previous presidents, and how it also he continued to symbolize the common person and to appeal to the common man as a way to use his presidential powers, which is completely different than the past. In fact, much of the elites and especially presidents, but also even members of Congress in the past, kind of tried to keep the government away from the people, which we could hear kind of a little bit about in the song The Corrupt Bargain. They felt like they weren't educated enough and that it was their duty to kind of make sure the country is run properly. And Andrew Jackson is doing the exact opposite. And I think that the bank war kind of symbolizes that in a really great way. So let's talk about it. So this was one of his central political powers during his presidency and during the age of Jackson in general. At the time, the bank symbolized the hopes and the fears that were inspired by the market revolution. Remember, we studied what the market revolution was last week. The expansion of banking helped to finance national economic development. So it was actually good in terms of making the U.S. a bigger economical power and to keep financing different big projects like the railroads, the telegraph, all those things, okay? But also many Americans, and Andrew Jackson being one of those key Americans, distrusted bankers as non-producers, right? They don't make anything, who contributed nothing to the national wealth but profited from labors of others, right? So again, he's appealing to the common laborers, common Americans. Heading the bank was this other guy that's not Andrew Jackson on my slide. His name is Nicholas Biddle, and he's from Pennsylvania. He was known for being a bit snobbish, aristocratic, and a hard-headed type of guy, okay? The government questioned if a private or public institution should hold as much power as the bank held at that point. In 1832, the future of the bank was actually put to question. In order to ensure the extension of the bank, which could expire in 1836. So when the bank was made in the early, like under Washington, they passed a law that said we will review if the bank is necessary in X amount of years, and that review was coming up in 1836. So in order for Biddle to actually ensure that the bank continued for an extended period of time, he aligned himself with many people in Congress, and the bill ended up passing in Congress. Jackson was pretty upset with by this. He considered it blackmail and he went against it vehemently. He vetoed the bill and used his veto as a way to message Sorry. Okay, I want to make sure I'm explaining this correctly. So he used his veto to kind of message to the American people that he felt like the central bank had unnecessary power and that by aligning himself with them, it was his duty to veto the continuation of the central bank. Okay, does that make sense? I think so. All right. So then, he continued to promote the idea that central power was only good for the elites. It hurt the common people, and that as a common person himself, he must fight for ordinary men, right? And he used the bank situation to show that directly to the American people. This is so different than what politicians did in the past, and that's why it's so important to recognize this, because I actually think this is very much what politicians do today, right? They're always trying to make themselves seem like us, right? Even we can see that through this campaign. I always think of when Obama and McCain ran against each other, they kept mentioning the plumber Joe, the plumber, and so they're always trying to make themselves seem very much like common Americans, right? Well, prior to Jackson, this did not happen. It was very much more that the elites wanted to prove that they were elite, that they were highly educated, that they had the training and the ability to run a country, and that made them different than common Americans. And that was good to be different than common Americans because they needed those capabilities to be powerful and to be running the nation. So his style of politics changed American politics forever. Another way he did that is he used the veto much, much more frequently than any previous president. And he used it as a way to align himself with the people like he did in this banking situation. We could even consider that he used the veto as like a weapon against Congress, and a way to separate himself and to give himself greater power as a president. So I just want you to make that very clear, that it is really important to understand Jackson's connection, or the way Jackson changed American politics that we can still see today. And I think we can have 100 different examples of this in just watching the politics of this last couple months and the presidential campaign. So awesome. I hope you enjoy. I'm going to play you another song, and then I'm actually going to have somebody else explain Indian removal because it's very confusing and he does a really good job. So enjoy, and I'll see you soon. Bye.